Hey everybody, how you doing? My name is Sharon Combs with UCDI Leadership, a subsidiary of Do Something Daily LLC. Tonight we begin our Isms Within the Systems series. We're going to talk about all different types of isms. Racism, yes. Sexism, yes. Gender, yes. Sizes, yes. Singlism, who even knew that was a thing, but it is.
Mm-hmm.
About all of these isms, and we're going to find out where the origins come from, what are some of the patterns of these systems, and how we can identify them so that we can be more solution oriented, more cohesive, and more unified moving forward. We're born with two fears. One of them is the fear of falling, and one of them is loud noises. Any other fear that drives our behavior is a learned behavior. And so we just want to bring some knowledge and some wisdom to some of the things that have been governing that really don't need to. We have Crystal. Crystal's going to be with us. Y'all know how we do on the show. We actually start with questions first and then we do introductions. But I want to say hi to Crystal, a first-time guest here on Knowledge or Nonsense. Donnie, first-time guest on Knowledge or Nonsense. And Celindra, first-time guest on Knowledge or Nonsense. Ask questions, share this video. If you're in a watch party and I don't get your question, find a way to get the question to us so that we can answer it. Again, ask your questions and we'll answer them. We will answer them. All right, so let's start this thing off first. I wanted to start off, it seems like I would start off with maybe racism because of so many things that are going on outside, but I would like not to. I would like to talk about some isms that maybe people don't normally talk about, and we won't go into it, but what are some isms that you think people don't actually get maybe the attention that racism and sexism gets?
I know.
Double Dutch. Go ahead.
I can jump in on that. I think one of the things people always overlook is sizeism. I'm not extremely tall. I am almost 5'2", so I'm not really short either. Or at least I don't consider myself short. Others may. But in those things, I notice there are lots of places I'll go or just things that are considered average size or the normal size of something, and I have difficulty like reaching the top shelf on in the cabinet, or if I go to some places, the shower head is like hitting me on top of my head. There are just different things that I think about that I consider extremely inconsiderate in in things being created and made. So that's one of the things I think is very often overlooked.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, I'll go with nepotism. From my experience, I had worked at UCLA Medical Center and people were surprised that I got in there. They was like, who do you know or who you related to? And that's a big, you have a lot of people, in my opinion, that are in positions that really not even qualified, but because their mom or dad or cousin or they did backroom deals, they make it in there and they're not even qualified. And we see that often in our current affairs, I would say, and I'll leave it like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Isn't it interesting that nepotism isn't considered a form of affirmative action, but it completely is a form of affirmative action? But anyway, wow.
How so?
Well, affirmative action where you hold certain spaces for a certain group of people. So when you talk about going to universities, we even see that with the two entertainers that were convicted because they were paying money to get their daughter or their children into a university. They paid money, even though the kids didn't meet the qualifications. And we don't think about that. It's called legacy. But it's really a form of affirmative action. If your grandfather went to this school or was in this fraternity, you have a lot of money, we're going to find a way to get you into this school. But that's not what I was going to say. I was going to talk about ableism, which actually maybe ableism / sizeism. And hear me out. I was watching during quarantine. I kind of got hooked on Little Women of Atlanta, because I was curious about how people who had a short stature, how do they navigate this world? I didn't watch it for like the ooh-wee, it was really like, what's going on with these women? And what I found out is that everything in this country or as far as like marketing and the commercial aspect, when you go into a store or when you go eat at a restaurant, is set up for people who have average height and have average capacity. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would see them go to the doctor and they'd have to reach over or look over on the counter just to sign their name. Or one of them had a baby and they celebrated because the baby was going to be little, because if it was an average size baby, she wouldn't be able to nurture it and care for it because of the size of the baby.
Wow. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's,
isn't that crazy? You won't think about that.
That's the thing. A lot of times people, just as a rule, there are always exceptions, but as a rule, a lot of times people don't think about things unless it directly impacts them. Mm-hmm. And what happens is that causes us to have maybe a more calloused approach. We can call it apathetic. We can call it ignorance, whether willful by force or by choice, where we are just not aware. But that right there, who would have thought? So that would be like a source of anxiety for mm-hmm. that mother. Like, because you want to be able to take care of your child and provide for your child and, nurture your child. And here, if that child would have been what people call the normal height, that would have created problems. Wow, I never thought about that. One of the things, and so today I'm going to start with Cylindra. Today, Cylindra has a podcast. It's called Eye on SPD. Yes. And I was listening to it a couple of weeks back, and she really talked about what she called racism in health, what she termed racism in healthcare. And I was listening, and I work within healthcare, like that's a warm market for me. And when she began to talk about how some people glorify people that are considered pioneers of an industry or pioneers of a field or of a discipline, even like the Donner Party, they're like pioneers in California, but they mm-hmm. literally shot the Native Americans for food. They weren't even dead yet. They just shot them for food because they were different. And so when she was speaking about that, it really caught my attention because you spoke on as far as like gynecology and the C-sections. Can you tell us a little bit about and within healthcare, because we're talking about origins, and origins will dictate patterns if you don't know. People say if you don't know your history, you repeat it. If you don't know the origin and intent of something, you can begin to really just repeat that thing and assume that it's true. So can you tell us a little bit about that within healthcare?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's two pieces to it. We have the C-section piece, and then you have what they call the father of gynecology, which is Dr. Sims. And we have instruments, the Sims forceps that's named after this guy. Okay, so to start off with the, I'm looking at my notes, but to start off with the C-section, the issue with the C-section is they have something they call a VBAC, like an assessment test that women end up, I guess, taking. The way it's called, well, VBAC means vaginal birth after C-section. So they're saying that after you have a C-section, if you want to have a vaginal birth after the fact, what is the likelihood you're going to have a successful vaginal birth? Okay, that's cool. But the problem is part of their little algorithm includes race. And when you put in all the other answers could be exactly the same, but when you change it from a Black woman to a white woman, the numbers change drastically. So they're telling Black women that you would not have a successful vaginal birth if you want to, but they'll tell a white woman, oh, you're good. You most likely would have a vaginal birth. So I was listening to another podcast where there was a Black woman who wanted to have a vaginal birth, and she had a white doctor who told her that it wasn't going to happen. And she ended up changing doctors because of that, because she didn't understand why they wouldn't even try those options out for her. So that's the piece with the C-section. Now, Dr. Sims, he started back during the slavery time.
Uh-oh. I don't know if that's the...
And he was pretty much like he kind of became a doctor.
Wait. Okay, go ahead again. Start over again because you went out.
Okay, so Dr. Sims, from what I understood, because this is all new information for me, it blew my mind when I found this stuff out. So he was practicing in Alabama. He's from South Carolina, Lancaster, South Carolina. He ended up going to Alabama as an apprentice under other doctors. The doctor had left town, and he ended up taking calls for the doctor. Next thing you know, he bought the practice from the doctor. He ended up setting up like 16 beds in his backyard, practicing on slaves. So what happened was the women were given, well, originally he was dealing with club feet, cleft palates, and crossed eyes. That's what he was dealing with at first. But then he started getting these slaves that could not give birth to their babies. And it was one woman, she was in labor for like 3 days and she couldn't give birth to the baby. So he showed up with like a spoon and other kind of contraptions trying to pull the baby out. And so after that, the lady ended up with a fistula. So it's like these holes or whatever in her the open area of her body, and it she ended up with urine or feces or whatever leaking into her internal organs or that open space. So what he did was he started experimenting on these slaves, trying to figure out how can he fix it. The problem with that is he wasn't using any anesthesia. On top of that, there was no aseptic technique or anything like that. So he wasn't cleaning up the instruments. And not only that, he was doing the same surgical procedure on the same woman, I think like 30 times. And then a lot of times he would work on like 11 different slaves simultaneously with this. And I mean, some of them recovered and some of them didn't. And let me see. Yeah, that's pretty much the nuts and bolts with Sims, who we call the father of gynecology. He actually had a statue up there, I believe, in New York, and they ended up taking it down, I think a couple of years ago, because people were protesting. He was a butcher.
Wow.
Okay, and that's just one of the things I want to say. Like, so here we have the origins, right? Something that may have appeared good in the origins, and now we're in the patterns. Even today, there is a higher recommendation for people of color, not just Black women, but people of color, to have C-sections. And logistically, like geographically, like a community, like if you're at a hospital that's not really high private care, there's going to be more C-sections there. And after C-sections, you actually
a higher fatality rate.
You have more issues. You have different things like stomach problems. You know, you may not be able to have birth. And so I know the C-sections are sometimes necessary, but this is what we're talking about, patterns, because the patterns are what sometimes you have to question, like, why are we doing what we're doing? And so I wanted us to talk about that in healthcare, because that's an example to me of an ism in healthcare. There's an ism there that is causing us to make decisions that are not based on science at all. Yes. It's based on an ism or on a hue. And so thank you for sharing that with me. Again, these are individuals who we herald as heroes. And so we just want people to have understanding, so that now when a woman goes to the doctor, if the doctor is telling you, hey, you must have a C-section, you don't feel like you're being rude or you're being aggressive, you know, because sometimes people want to be silent and be like, okay, well, I can only speak for me. I'm from Oklahoma. And when I was raised in Oklahoma, there was something that was just like, okay, we just kind of defer to it, you know, because you don't want to be angry. But I want you to know that this is a pattern, so that when you go to the doctor, you have a right. I know you know it in your mind, but I want to let you know you have a right to ask these questions. You're not angry for doing that. You're not disrespectful. You're not, quote unquote, forgetting your place or anything like that. You have a right to ask these questions so that your quality of life and your finances and the worry that comes with increased medical problems, like you don't have to live with that for the rest of your life because you went with a pattern instead of asking the questions that you wanted to ask.
Yes.
Okay, so that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. Who else has some thoughts? Because I have questions, but I want it to be organic. I don't want it to be like.
I have a question then, with all that history we just learned. What is the BMI calculator based on? Because I feel like I'm always at a disadvantage. I'm like, I know something is very off here. So does anybody have history on that? Because I'm like, it's not right. It's not good to me.
I don't. I don't know what the BMI. So fact checkers. Answer on one of our other isms. But growing up, I did definitely, like in 9th and 10th grade. I remember thinking how overweight I was and just how bad it was for me and everything. I look back at those pictures now and I'm like, quit playing.
Right. Yes.
You wouldn't even be able to tell me nothing, but I was trying to fit a model.
Right.
Yes.
You know, let me get that size. You wouldn't be able to tell me nothing. I wouldn't even be on the show. I'd just be like, just look at me.
Right.
But at that time, you know, I thought I was just fat and ugly because my BMI. And I was like, I can't get it down. Yeah. I can't get it down. So, you know, God bless. So I see where someone actually is mentioning that about what they had as far as a C-section. I had a C-section at 16, didn't want it, but my doctor made me feel like, and that's why I can't get pregnant again, and I'm 36 now. Oh, wow. Wow. Wow, that is just, we're so sorry about that, you know?
Yes.
We're sorry. We're very sorry about that. And so I wanted to ask another question as it related to that, not just in healthcare, but what are some practices that we see where people aren't actually, not just the average, not just the ones that are obvious. We really want to look at things that are not as obvious, because I want us to identify some of these practices, because then I want to bring Crystal in, because I want Crystal to talk about this social contract that rocked my world. It rocked my world. So what are some practices that we have seen? I don't want you to come from a place of anger. I want us to come from a place like of objectivity. Things we've seen where where people were treated unequally based on something that had nothing to do with their actions or something that they have done. Like it's based on something that's completely out of their control. Oh my God.
Well,
these
so I have something. I hope this kind of fits going back to the healthcare issue. And you talked, Sharon, you said the problem lies in us not, people, women of color, particularly African-American women, we are not asking the right questions to our healthcare providers, either because we don't even, I think, because we don't even know that we can ask those questions.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to bring up my personal experience when I got pregnant with my son in Norman, Oklahoma, when I was a senior at OU. Because I was a student, when I found out I was pregnant, my dad politely took me off his insurance. So I had to get on state insurance, right? And so I just remember, like, because I was on state insurance, my doctor, I didn't know that I could choose my doctor. I was assigned a doctor. I was just happy to feel like I had insurance and I don't have to worry about how I'm going to deliver this baby. So I was just assigned a doctor who ended up having so many horrible reviews, you know, but I didn't know to even think about that, because that's how uneducated I was, or anybody even around me, to even understand. Like a public defender for childbirth. That's really exactly what it is. And God bless you if you get a doctor, if you're on Medicaid or Medicare or whatever, that actually cares. But she, first of all, when I told her that I wanted to have him naturally. She was like, I don't think you're going to be able to do that. And I was like, I want to have my child naturally. She tried to talk me out of that. It ended up that I had no choice. When I went to the hospital, I was already dilated at an 8. So I thank God for that. I was already where I couldn't even get an epidural at that point. But she cut me, didn't even give me a chance to push him out. I pushed for a little bit, and then she just cut me before not even giving me a chance to even do the whole thing of pushing him out. And I remember telling that to my mom, and my mom was like, she cut me, because he came 2 weeks early. So my mom was like, she cut you? And like, it was just like crazy that she didn't even give me a chance. She's like, okay, cut. Here comes the baby. Okay, I'm done. You up. And then after I had my son, she was like, well, you need to get on birth. Like, yeah, well, I don't plan on having sex anymore. She was like, you need to be on birth control. She put me on the patch, right? The patch at that time, I did not know, was brand new, and it was being test marketed. Who do they have these test markets on? People who are on state insurance. That thing made me so sick. And I remember I just was like, I need to take this off. And when I ripped it off, I kid you not, y'all, I thought I was going to die. And I called her office, and I'll never forget, the nurse acted like I just put her out, that I'm crying on the phone thinking I'm about to die, and the attitude she had with me. And I just like, you can't, what other reason? You can say it was racism. I also say it was classism, because
classism is
yes.
Mm-hmm. Because the amount of money that you presented wasn't worth the amount of time. And
exactly.
That's a very real thing. And so, okay, so now we're seeing some patterns, and we're seeing origins. So we heard the origins of where they came from. Now we're seeing the patterns, and even in the comments, you can see where people are like, hey, hold on, that makes sense to me. And I just want to, if you're out there, I'm not a Lanya Van Zan or nothing like that, or, definitely not the Lord. But I just want to break any type of trauma. Like, I want to let you know, be free. You don't have to feel guilty if you're not able to give birth now because you yielded to the medical advice of someone who maybe
was a professional.
As a public defender may handle someone else.
Right.
And so not considering the lifelong impacts. And so be free with that. Donnie, you look like you had something that you wanted to share. Again, this is all about isms. And if we know the isms, like even telling people you can ask your doctor these questions, young people who are watching, ask your doctor. I don't care if you're a teenage pregnancy, you better ask. Open up your mouth and speak. Ask questions. How will this affect? How will this happen? And listen, if people want to tell you something, but they don't want to put a signature or put it in writing, that's good information to have. Then maybe ask someone else. If somebody ever wants to tell you something that they cannot back in writing or with information, you want to ask somebody else. Okay, I'm sorry, Donnie. You look like you had something to say.
No, I was just going to piggyback a little bit off of the classism, because even the sad part in those situations, we all feel like our government is out to protect us when they provide us with medical care or whatever, some of the benefits, but the people working in those positions don't have the same heart or whatever the original intent was behind that product or service line that the government is offering. So I too experienced the same thing with my oldest. I was a teenage mom. So they do just kind of throw you out there to the wolves. And it's just like, hopefully you land somewhere and the person cares. But the people there feel like they're working and then paying taxes to come back and help you. So even the attitude that you receive from those people, it's just like, why are you here? My doctor, when I left, told me, okay, I'll see you next year. And I was like, no, you won't. How dare you put that on me? Like, just because that I'm going to have several children or just fit whatever stereotype you put in your mind. That's not what this is, not what it is at all. But I just want to piggyback off of that that whenever we try to utilize those benefits that we're told are there and that we're paying tax dollars for, we don't always receive the type of care we expected to receive.
Right. Oh my gosh, y'all.
Go ahead.
I was just thinking back.
Go, we ready for you.
Okay, so whenever I even found out that I was pregnant with my son, OU had at that time a doctor's office on campus, and they used their medical students, but they had, obviously people who oversaw them. And when I found out I was pregnant, the doctor on campus just automatically assumed, he was like, well, I want you to know you're pregnant. I mean, you're pregnant. He took me in his office and sat me down, and I started crying. He was like, well, here's the number to a couple of clinics. He just assumed I was going to have an abortion. Like,
wow.
That could be because I was a young college student, mixed a little racism in it. I mean, it could be a number of things, right? But he just assumed that I was going to have an abortion. So, Sharon, when you talk about origins and you think about Margaret Sanger and Planned Parenthood, you know what I mean? Even back to slavery days where we Black women were treated as breeders. And maybe that also affects how we receive medical care now. This country's been conditioned to think we could just pop babies out left and right because we had to do it in the cotton fields and then get up the next day and keep picking. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because they feel like our threshold of pain is pretty high too, because that's another thing with them. It was like, oh, they can deal with the pain.
Yes.
And then that's an implicit bias too that's already like subconsciously in the back of their mind. And they don't even know they're acting on it.
And that's crazy. Why we're really doing this. That is why we're really doing this. So if you're Black, if you're not Black, this conversation that we're having may make you feel uncomfortable, make you feel like we're attacking. We're not attacking. We want to hit the origin and we want to hit the patterns, because a lot of patterns that are right now are based in those origins. And even a lot of people just on social media, you see them like, it's almost like their brain is exploding. Like, what? This is really out there, even though people have been saying it for years, but it's like, because they don't have a grid. And so we want to help you. We want to help define that grid by looking at the origins and looking at the patterns, not just for Black people or people of color or short people or tall people or big people or small people, any ism, woman, man. We want to identify those. We want to show the patterns so that we can identify the mile markers of it. So that when we are engaging in those behaviors or when we are even encountering those behaviors, we don't have to fly high. We don't have to feel like, why? We can use it as an opportunity to educate If education doesn't work, then we look at other methods or other methodologies. But a lot of people really don't know. There are a lot of people who are genuine when they're like, oh, I'll take you to Planned Parenthood. You shouldn't have to do this, but they don't know the origin of that, you know? And they haven't researched to see how people feel after they go through one. Yeah, because that's a whole other healthcare thing. And so we're gonna take a small break. I'm just gonna show some, I have some, let me put this in here. We have some new comments coming. Again, if you're making a comment and it's in a watch party, I wish I could see it, but I can't see it. So if there's a way that you can maybe go to the live chat and then later, or somebody in there can answer it so that we can get the things to you that we need to get to you. But I want to just show us, I'm really glad that we're doing this because there are young people out there, things are going on right now. And we ought to be able to have a discourse or a dialogue without someone insulting, calling people out of the name. We are going to, I'm going to go ahead and do this little brand, and then I'll come back. And Crystal, I really want you to tell us about the social contract, because the social contract, I believe, is why so many people give a pass to some of the whatever while black scenarios, whether walking while black, driving while black, working while black, swimming in a pool while black, and somebody was, you know, and so a lot of those times there's something already ingrained in people. Yeah. Let me help you. Even though this is an ism, it is still a learned behavior that's based in fear. You know, fear that you may lose a job, fear that you may lose an edge, fear that you may lose leverage, based in fear. So I want us to be able to look at those things that drive people. And for you guys who are like, your head is like, what's going on? I never knew it was really like that. Oh my God, how can I help? We just want to let you know, hey, here's some origins, some patterns, and some identifiers so that you can come out of that cycle yourself. All right, I talked a lot right there. Let me come on out and show this beautiful baby. This beautiful, beautiful baby. Because this is what's going on now.
I know her.
Do you know her? Do you know her? So we're going to talk a little bit more, because I want you to talk about the social contract, and I want you to talk about even how it affects, because that social contract, this young girl is going to come into contact with it. Some young boy is going to come into contact with it. And some young girl and some boy that's not a person of color is going to try to engage their social contract because they've learned it themselves. So can you tell us about the social contract, Crystal?
Okay, so I wish I could remember exactly where I saw this phrase, but basically,
wait, I'm sorry. Crystal, let me interrupt you for 1 second. Guys, I want to let you know who we have on today. We got right into the conversation, but I definitely want to let you know. Celindra Bearfield, traveler, she's worked in the healthcare field. She's an educator. She's triple crown. That means she has a CRCST, a CIS, and a CHL. She's an entrepreneur originally from Los Angeles, but now she's down there in the Georgia area. I'm not even gonna say where she is in Georgia, but so you know that was a culture. We've been making that move from Los Angeles Georgia, to go to Georgia. And so she has educational programs that are on YouTube, helping people within healthcare, helping them be able to have a voice, helping them be able to recognize that there is a succession plan even after you worked in healthcare. Yes. Also, I want to tell you about Crystal Renee. Crystal Renee, she's from Tulsa, Oklahoma. She didn't put this in her bio, but she definitely comes from a law enforcement family. I threw it out there. And she serves as a Tri-City Collective, which is a group of authors, educators, and artists who work with various nonprofits in Tulsa. She is the coordinator for Racism Stinks. It stinks, y'all, and that's a nonprofit in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And more than that, she's just somebody who really wants to bring understanding, not try to force something, but bring understanding and say, hey, what are we doing and why are we doing what we're doing? And how can we do some things better? And then we have Diney Payne, a dynamic businesswoman. She just has Diney P up there. Dynamic businesswoman, self-educated, runs many companies, facilitates many minority business owners getting situated and getting positioned so that they can have sustainable success. And those are the individuals who are here today. And my name is just Sharon. I'm a human behavior consultant. emotional intelligence. Again, people, studying people and saying, why do we do what we do? And we do something different. So thanks so much for joining us today. Now, Crystal, thanks for allowing me to interrupt you. Tell me about this social contract and why people can just stop folks from being citizens of race.
Okay, so yes, so the social contract basically is what exists in America that has said that black people are an inferior race, and we have to be subservient to white people. And whether or not we realize we engage in this behavior, I've realized I've done it. Think about this. So we've seen it play out before our eyes a couple of weeks ago in the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, when 2 white civilians, not even law enforcement, thought that they can accost this man who was jogging and minding his business, and that he was supposed to yield to them. What in the world made them feel like that? It happened in Edmond, Oklahoma with the delivery drivers, where they thought that these 2 men who were working had to answer to them. And also, what's funny concerning Ahmaud, on the page that was created for his murderers, the bio basically said what we're about is that they should have complied. They literally said that this man should have complied. The 2 white men he had never seen before who were armed. How I have engaged in the social contract to where I took on a subservient role to white people is, how many times have I diminished myself? Or how many times have we all diminished ourselves because we knew that the white woman or the young white man or whatever was afraid of us? Especially, I do this all the time with older white people. I know that if I come up behind them, that they're going to be scared if they turn around. Why should I diminish myself? But I found myself like, excuse me, ma'am. Sorry, y'all, but it's true.
Yeah, it's a softer approach.
Yeah,
a much softer approach. Yes.
Rather than just going about my day, if I pass an elderly black woman, but I literally put myself consciously into this role without even understanding that what I was really doing. I thought, I'm being respectful to what? Their age or the color of their skin. Anyway, so that's it in a little short synopsis.
And I can relate to what you said. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
It happened to me today because I was in the laundromat, and it was me, it was an older black man, and it was an older white woman. And she had her back to me. She had her purse on the counter, and I was pushing my stuff toward the door, and I knew I had to pass her. And in my mind, I thought, should I go the other way? Because I didn't want to scare her if she turned around and see me. And then I thought about it. I said, that's up to her. She gonna have to deal with that. But it was something that I actually stopped today and had to think about. Before I moved forward. Like, well, I scared this lady.
Yeah.
So I can dig it.
So in just a second, we're going to talk about this as it relates to business, because I know that there have been business opportunities where people, and this really surprised me when I moved to Dallas, Texas, and I started doing different things in healthcare, where people are literally willing to pay thousands, almost to millions more to a company so that they don't give that to a Black-owned company. And I was like, are you kidding me? That's got to be a joke. But it's actually not a joke. It's a real, it's just like, that's too much money. That's too much money for you. And again, I don't, in my younger years, I would be mad, like, how dare you? But I realized they were taught the same way we excuse me, ma'am, the same way that's been groomed and ingrained in us, teleologically taught. They've been taught the same thing. I've seen people who are not people of color go toward a business that is a business owned by people of color, been running successfully for years, and automatically they're like, let me tell you what to do. Like, something is like, okay, I'm here now, I'm in charge. And that's all part of the social construct. And I don't think we should be super angry about it. I think we should check out the origins and identify the patterns so that when we see those traits, then we can serve that back. Not with contempt or animosity, but we can serve it back and be like, okay, why would you be in charge? And I see that in health and in roleisms. Like, sometimes within SPD, you take somebody who knows absolutely nothing about, well, I'm not even just gonna put SPD, but you take somebody who knows absolutely nothing about this department.
Oh yeah.
And then you just put them there.
In charge.
And they don't have, you put them in charge. You put them in charge. And of that social construct. I do want to say this, Krista, just to let you have peace, I have been there too. I remember being at a church and there was something going on in the church that I didn't want to do. And like, if I was speaking with you or with someone I know, I'd be like, move, girl, gone with that. You playing, right? You playing, you know, just camaraderie. And so I did that with this person, and it wasn't a person of color. And so then everything went on. I didn't want to embarrass them, you know, because they were the leader of the class. I was like, quit playing. Only to them. I wasn't loud. Everybody didn't hear it. And then after that incident went down, the person came up to me out in the foyer and they were like, what was that? And I was like, what? Listen, I was so naive. I was like, what? Because I'm like, everyone's our friend. We're all equal here. We're Christians. And they were like, what was that? You were about to hit me. And I was like, and in my mind, I did the social contract. In my mind, I was like, as uncomfortable as I was, and then my feelings were hurt. I was so hurt. I was like, this is my friend, I thought. And I was so hurt, but in my mind, immediately, I started trying to think of ways to placate this person. But also, I was like, man, we jumped some steps. I didn't get to cuss you. I didn't get to cuss you out. Like, we just went from wait till I'm about to hit you. That was that was 100 real quick. Right. But they were so sincere. And I remember that was a big part of me really getting into human behavior and some of the things I do even to this day. Because I was like, this isn't right. It wasn't right for her because it was going to diminish our relationship, and it wasn't right for me. And I was like, where does this stuff come from? So,
okay.
I'm going to talk about business. Oh, go ahead. What are you going to say, Crystal?
Oh, I was just going to make the comment that we operate, how we exist in the world as African-American women, Black women, is that I feel like we have to constantly be aware, even though we don't maybe not have not coined it the social contract, but we're constantly aware of the race dynamic and how we're perceived by other people. And I'm just like, you know, I'm tired. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to center my existence around how somebody else might view me. It's like, it's 2020. It's like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm tired.
Yeah, it's extremely tiring. I'm tired of living up to, or what we call an extremely strong Black woman. There are lots of things, and I'm very dynamic. There are several things that I can do, but that does not mean that I don't want a shoulder to cry on every once in a while. That does not mean that I don't want someone to help me up the hill or help me out of a car. The things that we have done or have been forced to do, we've been forced to do it due to the circumstances and situations. Most of them were not by choice. So that's one of the things that I very, very often become so heated over. Like, what made you think I wanted to stay up all night and finish this project? You know what I'm saying? Like, what made you feel like I'm the one who wants to finish all this stuff out because I am the strong Black woman who we're supposed to hold and carry the weight of all of these things. And not to say that I'm not a team player, don't want to be, because there are those situations when I might be the best person to carry the bulk of the load, or the workload, but does it always have to be it? And then how often do I have to fit that role? Because that's the stigma that's been placed upon me. Okay. Yeah. And then I find myself, I do have, I smile a lot, but I think that even smiling a lot comes from helping other people to feel comfortable in my presence. Yes. And I am a very happy, jovial person about 70% of the time, 70, 75. So I'll give it most of the time. I really am. But there are those moments where I don't feel like I should have to go and smile. And why can't I just look? Like, why do I have to go in over and above to do all these things? Right. Those around me feel comfortable. That's one of the burdens I am very tired of carrying.
Yes.
That in just a moment, I'm going to read something from The Making of a Slave from the Willie Lynch, because one of the things, even in business, what you'll hear, and you hear it, you don't just hear it from only people of color, you hear it from all races. Like, if something is Black owned, it's almost like there's an assumption that you'll be late to everything, you'll be open when you want to be open. Look, get your money because you don't know how long they're going to be around. You know what I'm saying? But if you look at the communities that were externally destroyed, externally demolished, thriving communities where people have business day to day with excellence. And so I just want to read this because this comes back. This comes up. This is origin. This is origin, guys. This is not anger. This is origin. And you may not be aware of it. But it says, don't forget, you must pitch the old black male versus the young black male, and the young black male against the old black male. You must use the dark-skinned slaves versus the light skins, and the light-skinned slaves versus the dark skins. You must also have your white servants and overseers distrust all blacks. But it is necessary, and this is underlined in the book. Not my underline, the author underlined it. But it is necessary that your slaves trust and depend on us. They must love, respect, and trust only us. And early in the book, it says nothing is bigger than trust except for distrust. And so a lot of times, again, that's the origin. And so next time you're somewhere and maybe a business isn't open on time, if the first thought that comes to you is, that's why I don't do business with black people, then I want you to be aware you're in a pattern. You are in a pattern. So highlight that pattern, highlight that trait, and then ask yourself, what about a time you've gone to a business that wasn't owned by a black person and it wasn't closed? Did you have the same response? That's why I'll never do business with white people. Or that's why I never do business with Asians. Or that's why I never do business with women. That's why I never do business with men. You know, like what the ism is. And so we want to be aware of the patterns, and so that we can, so we can navigate these things and chop up at the root.
You're talking about that foundational
and cherries. Let's chop down some stuff at the root, because when we pick up fruit, you know what that means? The same time next year, we're going through the same conversation. And that's some of the thing that has cities burning right now, because we have the same conversation dealing with fruit. But I want us to deal with these origins and patterns so we can get to roots and just, you know, like pull that up and let's plant something else. So I didn't mean to go on a rant there, but I meant everything that I said. So also in business, and then I'm going to let y'all talk about business again. For those of you who are in corporate America or in your jobs and you make yourself small because you don't want people to think you being assertive as you being aggressive, you don't want them to be mad at you, or somewhere you've been groomed to believe there's only room for one person of color, I want to tell you, be free of that foolishness. Don't be trouble. They're going to think I'm the angry black person. Well, then they already think it. They just need you to be angry so they can throw it at you. And then you're no longer a threat for a position of authority or influence where you can change. They teach you the work of being. So break that. All right. So now let's talk about business, because let's talk about business, because I'll go on. So, hey, Stephen Gunn is on here. Check that out. There are a lot of things that people are taught, and I really don't. I know. I know in my know that they don't mean and that they don't hate me. You know, I know that they don't hate me, but they've been groomed for certain things the way others have. And if those thoughts haven't been challenged, then we'll keep take another lap, Moses. We'll keep taking those same cycles.
Amen.
So with business, what are some ways? This woman just said, I'm sorry, this just messed me up. Women are told to shut up and cook. Your place is in the kitchen.
I saw that.
I don't have a comment. Rarely am I speechless, but that's one. I referee basketball, and I've heard I haven't heard, but people have actually said, go back in the kitchen. Get back in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let me ask another question then. Anybody have something they wanted to say about business?
What specifically did you want to touch on? Or
this one I want to touch on. How many times do you lower your prices when somebody else doesn't?
Oh my goodness. Yes, may I
Hello, black people. How many times do you lower your prices because you feel like that's the only way you're gonna get it? And
listen,
this is what you look like. Oh
my goodness. I literally was just talking about this the other day. How I have caught myself giving wealthy white people steep discounts for what? They're the ones that can afford to pay my asking price. If I give a discount to anybody, it should be the people who can't, who maybe work 2 or 3 or 4 jobs and want something. That's what am I doing? Yes, ma'am. You just read my mail.
Yeah. Read your mail. I like that.
Yeah, I would say one of the things I've caught myself doing, we do discount prices. But after you get past that point, then you find yourself in like this proof cycle. You know, like I always want to prove my worth or show you how much better I am at this or how great I am at something.
Come on.
But my work automatically shows that. It shows my value. I don't have to do all these extra songs and dances to show you what you're gaining by partnering with this company. You get that anyway. But I used to really find myself in that prove mentality. Like, what can I do to prove to them how fabulous I can be? But it's not about that all the time. It's you're receiving a great product. They need to be thankful that they had the opportunity to partner with a company such as this.
That's right.
Yeah.
I would say for me, negotiating contracts when I'm traveling, I felt like a lot of times I took a lot of contracts because I didn't want to get passed over instead of negotiating. And then after me traveling for probably about a year or so, I stopped doing that. And I started really, when I went on the phone interviews, I kind of interviewed the manager just as well as them interviewing me. And I started asking and looking for the things that I needed, that I wanted, because I've been on too many contracts where I end up working weekends. I didn't know I had to work it. I wasn't getting holiday pay or whatever it was. I didn't negotiate anything. I just took what they gave me. And so I would say that to me, that's kind of like lowering my prices, because I could have negotiated for higher. Even if it wasn't even money, it could have been my stipend. And I didn't do that. I just took what they gave me.
Yeah.
And many do. And so, you know, you learn and you grow on it, but we want them to do it. So, okay. So some of these things we talked about, even as far as racism, but also gender, we are women.
Oh,
yeah.
And so we're women, and sometimes there have been roles, and again, not mad at anybody, but if we know the origins, there have been roles that women have been passed over because they're women. And sometimes it's because they don't think you can do the job. Sometimes it's because they know you can do the job. Sometimes it's just because it's something from the older time when women were like, well, they're going to have to leave to go take care of the kids, because it never occurred to them that a father would take care of the kids. But fathers take care of kids all the time. It's a unit. It's a family unit. It's a family unit working together. Yeah. So also as women, Cynthia says, historically, women were thought of like children. They were to be seen and not heard. They had no voice. So when they speak passionately, sometimes they tie it into masculinity. And that's when, again, when you see a strong man in a role, you see a strong woman, the B word, you know, or she's difficult to work with. She's difficult. You know, we use euphemisms for it, but like, again, origin, begin to see the patterns and the identifiers. And so I want to ask this, because we're like 47 minutes into this thing. And good job. No one got yay. I want to ask, oh my. Okay, this person, check this out, guys. As I'm looking for another comment, what do y'all think about that one?
What?
I was told by a Caucasian male, this is this woman, this African-American woman, who was told by a white male that he wasn't paying me that much because it meant that I would make more than him.
Wow.
It goes back to that social contract that sometimes I feel like people don't even recognize that they have those beliefs and biases. Like, we can even talk about one of the reasons why historic Greenwood was destroyed, the social contract of who, besides it being a land grab, but who do these Negroes think they are, having more wealth than us? You know, when they looted their homes and their businesses, generational wealth was stolen. And I believe that people were able to rationalize that because they have been taught in this country, especially in that time, that Blacks were inferior, and they're the reason why I don't have a higher status. Is somehow that these people in Greenwood, their wealth has indirectly affected me, and they're the reason why I'm poor, and I deserve this. So I feel,
which is crazy, because that is the very thing, like, not politically, I deserve this. They worked for it, but I deserve this. And that's the very thing that a lot of people who are not in the system, like they're mad over that same concept. Just take that same concept. I deserve it. They worked for it. I deserve it. And so when you listen to people who are in business now and in certain political parties, they get upset. It's like, no, they think that I work for this. And so they think they deserve it when it comes to social programs. but it was that same license and that same that allowed people to go into thriving communities and just. I got a little deep there. We just gonna let that one drizzle down.
No, I agree. It's one of those things we always want to find someone else to blame for our lack of something or whatever we may have or may not have. Because I think even sometimes, depending on the circle or the city you live in, whoever that group of people is that someone can focus on to show that they are the people disenfranchising someone, they're going to be the ones to blame. So often we have seen it in communities where it could be someone of Asian descent, it can be someone of Hispanic descent, because even now we're facing things where people are like, don't come into this country. No, you can't do that. But is it really their fault if they come into the country? Is that really where we're losing jobs to? Is that really preventing me from obtaining a goal or accomplishing something I want to accomplish? Because the country was supposed to be built on diversity. So if those are the things that we're really built on, then why are we always so often trying to fight the things that we say or that we say we're supposed to be inclusive of? It's never been the melting pot. And in order for it to be the melting pot, we have to continue to let other pieces in to melt with us. We can't say on one hand, yeah, come in here, we're all one. And then on the other hand, no, get out, you're not accepted. We have to make a decision on what we're going to do and how we're going to accomplish those things. And it's fine, whichever way you want to go, but be real about it. Don't go behind, don't hide behind some systematic platform to say, I'm really not like this, or this is what I'm doing. Say what it is so everybody knows the stance, how they approach it, and then we move on from there. So we all get to make a decision. Do we want to pursue this relationship? Do we want to join this force? So we know up front, we don't have any hidden agendas. If you let me know, hey, I've never dealt with a woman of African descent coming in to work in this role. Okay, I know what I'm working with. But that doesn't mean it's a bad thing or anything. It's something we can't work through. We put it all out on the table. Now we know where we start and we know how to accomplish a great end from being open and upfront, not saying, ooh, going behind my back or saying, I really hope she fails. That's not how we do it because that's not allowing you to be the best you can be. So I did kind of just go off on a little rant. But anyway, all those things should be upfront and open about it because that's the way that we all win. There's enough out here for everybody. Nobody wants to see, or at least I'm going to speak for me. I don't want to see anybody living in despair or feeling like that they're less than or they're not part of a community that I live in or I'm a part of. I want everybody who wants to be included to be included.
Right. And that's what I love about America. We can have those different things. Look, Amy says yes. You got. I feel like people throwing shoes at you. Oh,
hi, Amy.
Amy is a dynamic person. Amy, she's such a beautiful soul. And so, okay, so we've talked about that. We only have a few minutes left. Man, did no commercial. We just show some of these pictures because listen, people are coming up. And if there's some pictures you want me to show, it doesn't only have to be a picture of a young African-American female. Send me some pictures. If you have someone Native American, Indian, whatever, Asian, Hispanic, send me some pictures because we are leaving this place to people and we don't need to leave them with our foolishness or with things that we recognize does not serve. It doesn't serve. It doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve those who love. So let's let go of that foolishness. I mean, I just just foolishness. So now that we've done that, we're at this stage in our life, right? We talked about the origins, we talked about the patterns, and we see some of the identifiers. We want people to be free. Share this video. What are some ways that we have navigated it so that we can be successful and be able to have a platform to influence people? Because everybody on here has a platform. You're influencing people, not just because you're on here. You were already influencing people. So what are some things you've done so that you didn't get caught up and be so that you didn't marry anger? It's all right for you to feel anger. Anybody who tells you it's not, they lying to you. We get to feel all the emotions. What are some things we've done to navigate and be able to come out on the other side and speak with love and speak life and speak love and speak growth and speak progress to people so that we're not, just spitting venom or tit for tat? What are some things you've done to navigate that?
Well, for me, I had to I'll start if it's okay. If just because my phone might die, I'm sorry, y'all. I thought it was fully charged. For me, honestly, after years of being in the church and being a Christian and being a believer, and I still am very, very much a believer. I had to, when I stepped away from formalized religion and just really started seeking God for myself, I started to understand who I am as a human being and who God has created me to be in my position. And I started asking, well, why did you have me in these spaces? And it just seemed like once I started asking those questions, a lot of things started coming together. And I also recognized that all of the things that I struggled with my entire life, that although they didn't serve me, they still helped to shape me to be the woman that I am. And I had to recognize the good, even though they may not have been good for me, the good that came out of those things. And so once I started to recognize that in myself, I begin to see other human beings that way. And so when I come against people who have, and I'm in spaces, which I think all of us are, where we have to deal with people of every walk of life, every color, every socioeconomic level. And so even though people say a lot of dumb things, they don't know any better. I have become got to the point where, because I see my own flaws and look at myself differently, that I am asking God constantly to help me see other people as human beings and understand, like Sharon said, the origin. If you don't understand that you've been socialized, if you don't understand that you've been programmed, if you don't understand any of these things, if you have, none of us have been taught to look at history through a true lens. Just like we've been lied to, they've been lied to as well, whoever they are. And so just understanding that, and Sharon, and like Sharon said, when you check out the origins and identify the patterns, you can't ignore the patterns, right? So just helping, just building relationships with people and trying to be that person who people feel like I'm a safe place and are comfortable with coming to me and talking about, which has happened a lot in this last week. People who are not Black have been reaching out to me, messaging me because of relationship. People who would have never marched were in that protest on Greenwood on Sunday, affirming Black lives. I got chills. I cried for real. I stood on the corner of Greenwood and Archer, 99 years to the date of the race massacre, and instead of fires and killings and murder and jealousy and lynching, it was people of every race, creed, every orientation affirming, declaring Black Lives Matter and affirming Black lives, and it was beautiful. So just trying to walk in love. Just sum that all up.
Yes.
Ooh. Nice.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll say for me, one of the things that I really try to do is make sure I was able to get over the anger or the hurt, because I stopped trying to change people's their perception. I will not be able to ever change someone's perception because it's their reality. It's what it is. So all I can do is try to expose people to different situations or an environment to where they understand that it's not always what you've been told. And it's not always just black and white, and this is always right and wrong. There are lots of things that we're not exposed to that could really, really have a great impact on our lives if we would just be a little open-minded to it. So that's really what I try to do. I don't try to buck the system. If somebody tells me whatever it is, I'm like, good. All right. I hope it works out for you. But if someone turn around and they want to take some of the advice, and I'm like, hey, I'm there with open arms, ready to embrace. And I will run just as hard for you as you run for yourself. That's the way that I try to assist people.
Okay.
For me. Yes, for me, I just say I'm here. I carry myself like a responsible person. I respect everyone. I go where I want to go. I look you straight in your eye. I exchange my money for your services or your business or whatever it is, and I expect you to treat me with nothing but respect when I'm in there, because that's what I'm due for you. So everywhere I've been, that's exactly how I moved. I moved to Colorado, a place I've never been, lived in cities where nobody looked like me. I was the only one there. And I dealt with that in such a way, I felt like I just blended right on in, because I didn't slow down. I didn't misstep. I didn't second guess my moves. I just moved like everybody else. And that's what I continue to do.
She had that spirit of bow down. I ain't mad at it.
Right. So, so likewise for me, I really just I want people to think about what they're thinking about. Like, what is your driver? Like, who said that? What is your driver? For myself as well. And I feel like if people aren't self-aware, then they will always be governed by their triggers and not by their intellect. Like, your trigger will undermine the progress you've made. Your trigger will interrupt relationships you have. So you become self-aware, become aware of your origins and your patterns and your identifiers, and then you can help other people do the same. Again, and for me too, I have a thing where it's like, I'm telling everybody, if I go somewhere and I'm like, what? Red and blue make green. I'm running back. And I'll be like, hey, do y'all know red and blue make green? I saw it. I saw red and blue. They put it together with green. It was green. I'm going to tell everybody the red and blue make green. Some people don't know red and blue, but I'm going to let them know that's how it makes green. Because in 5 years, you might need something green. And you will know that red and blue made green. And so this has been Knowledge and Nonsense, ladies. I want to thank y'all so much for just sharing your time. I know, just thank you. I don't even
Thank you.
Thank you. In your own way, doing the thing, opening it up for other people. Karen Cherry, who's one of the sponsors of Knowledge and Nonsense, owner of SIPS Consults, been in her field 35 years, owns a company that is successful and employs, started with a consultant and a volunteer, and employs several now nationwide. And one of the comments she put is she had found there were times when she was still being there trying to prove, because of that thing. So we're going to talk about colorism this upcoming Saturday. We'll talk about leading within crisis, because there's crisis all around, but we're also going to hit colorism, sexism, and if somebody on there is either super tall, well, not super tall, is taller than average, or than average, we'll talk about some sizeism as well. We just want to look at how they came about, the patterns of, so that we can recognize when we're doing. I mean, it's not just what people are doing to us. Sometimes we're doing it ourselves. Just because you're a person of color doesn't mean you can't be racist. Correct. That same training that people have had, you can still be racist in your activities and your actions and your words. This is how you can recognize some isms. If you speak about people with contempt, check yourself. That's not love. And so just something, because I'm a woman, I can't be sexist. There's plenty of women who like women need to be in the kitchen. So listen, just because you are something don't mean you're exempt from the practices that undermine that thing. Hang up. All right, thank you so much. Oh, yeah, they will. If there is no struggle, okay, I'm going to put this up and then I'm going to end the broadcast. Ladies, if you can stay on for just a couple of seconds, everyone else will go away, and then we have this conversation and they don't get to listen. No, all right, so give me a second, ladies. Thanks again, guys. We'll be back on Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. We're going to be talking more about isms because we're going to do our part.
All right.